So welcome back guys in this today's chess video. So today we are going to look how to find the best moves in the position and also how to win at chess. So today we are going to look the winning formula in chess. So what's the winning formula there? If we analyze this position, there is an opposite side castling which would lead black in a great danger because there is a rook kept on h file, and as you can see this is an open file. We can connect your rooks. After some bishop there, we can double up the battery and use this to attack the king. So black is in danger now. But what is the best moves from this position? So here, this is a real game played between Benko and Nazarov. Here Nazarov with white pieces and Benko with black pieces. Benko played rook e8, and can you spot the winning move for this white? It's not a puzzle, it's the winning formula that I will explain you. So you have much more options. What you can do is bishop d3 there, bishop h3. You can probably take this knight. You can also use this h file by doubling up your rooks, connecting your rooks. Now what you can also do is knight e2, trading off this powerful knight. So how would you find this? Also there is a move king b1, centralizing your king, keeping it safe from any checks or danger, also protecting this pawn twice. So how would you find the best moves from this position? We will look this very same position but after this training idea. So here in this position, as you can see, this rook is covering the 14 squares, and at the same time this knight is covering only 8 squares. From this position, this rook is way more powerful than a knight. So according to this, the points given to the pieces are based. So he controls 8 squares over the board when it is in the center, so it has given only the 3 points, and when the rook is in the corner, he controls over 14 squares, so he is given 5 points. According to this, it is best. So by calculating the squares that a piece is controlling, we can get to know the how the piece is stronger. In this position, the knight is covering only 8 squares, whereas this rook is covering 14 squares. So this rook is way more powerful than this knight. The strength of the piece can also be depend on the location of the piece. Like in this position, going back here, as you can see, this knight, our white knight, is covering these 8 squares, and now what this black knight is doing is covering only 4 squares, so it's double of this white knight. Depending on this location, he's on the 8th rank, so he's not able to control more squares. If he might be there, he is able to control these much squares. So from this position, how you looked, it is according to the location also how your knight is powerful or strengthy. Now depending on the position also, this is controlling 4 squares, this is controlling 8 squares. So now what you can do is, if we add 2 pawns there like this, now these pawns are covering the 4 squares, not really here. This pawn here controls now the 4 squares like this, and now as you can see, these 2 pawns are covering 8 squares, so these pawns are worth the knight. So I have kept these pawns upside, so now these pawns are covering 4 squares, so these are worth this knight, because this knight is covering, as we can see, so this knight is covering 8 squares while this knight is 4, and now when we add these 2 pawns on the board, these are covering 4 squares. So now these 2 pawns and a knight is equal to this knight which is on the board covering 8 squares. So these 2 pawns and this knight is covering 8 squares. So now this is the piece which is more stronger, and this is an equal position. So though they have 2 extra pawns, but they cover the more less board. Now the position is equal. The variation in this position where this black knight is on the 8th rank and this knight is covering these two squares from this knight coming in. So now this knight, when it was covering these four squares, but now as you can see it's white to move, and now it is controlling 8 squares and the black knight is covering only 2 squares, while these 2 squares are taken out by our knight, as this knight can't move because we will take it. We can't move here also because now we can take this knight. So now what we can do is we are controlling 8 squares, and from this knight is can't able to control this d6 and f6 square since it is covered by our knight. So we'll minus 2 squares from this knights, and now this knight is controlling only 2 squares. So now we have to apply this position in our games, day-to-day games that we play or in the tournament, so that we control more squares of the board, we block more pieces of our opponent's pieces. So going back here, the very same position, Benko versus Nazarov. So that we have looked the formula of activity that your pieces are covering the more squares, we have to apply here. Also you want to do your pieces more forward that they control more squares, which makes your pieces stronger, and at the same time they start to take away the squares that your opponent's pieces are getting, making the piece more even weaker, and that's how you play the chess. So this was the formula of the activity of your pieces to win at chess. So let's put this formula in our game. So let's look by applying the formula. So first we look what if we take here. Yes, it's positive side that this knight is controlling half of their board and half of our board. So we don't want that. So what if we eliminate this knight? Eliminating this knight, what it gives is after this e captures f4 move, it activates this long little diagonal bishop which is placed on this g7, which activates this rook on the e file, and on the next move this knight is ready to come on the e file to control more squares on the board like this. So after putting your knight on e5, this will control these all blue squares. So we don't want that. So going back there, we don't want to take this, because if we take this, it is activating 3 of our opponent's pieces. So we don't want that. So now let's look at the move king b1. So what it's doing, this pawn is already defended, this pawn is already defended with 2. So don't want your king to move on b1 since it is not in a danger. So it would be a dubious move. So let's take a look about the move rook g1. Yes, to getting the opposition of your king, putting the rook on the opposite side of your king. But what this move does, it does not creates any squares that the rook is controlling. So let's say if you move your rook here, it is now controlling only these 2 square, 3 squares. So we don't want that to put a rook on this file. So rook being here is now controlling more squares and is more active like this. So we don't want that to play rook g1. So how about the move bishop there and bishop to there? So now let's see what if we bring our bishop to e3. Is it controlling the more squares? No, it is controlling only the 3 squares. Yes, if we bring bishop here, what it is doing, it's covering these back squares also, and now it is getting a diagonal, a pretty open diagonal, and will control these more diagonals. So bishop h3 is the best move from this position, as you can see. And the very same move was played between those both games. Benko took this knight, and from this position Nazarov took this knight with the rook. So not the best move to take with the knight, because this knight first was covering half of your territory of the board. So not the best move, and now you are left with the only passive pieces on the board. So now after this move, Benko played this knight f8. Benko is applying the same rule as we have discussed, putting your knight on the more active pieces that they control the more squares on your board. as well as of your opponent's piece board. So he's relocating his knight to this h7 square. So now look up at the move. Rook h1 makes the battery of these rooks ready to go this checkmate. So not the checkmate because this is defended with the bishop. So now there is no really threat. Instead of going this here, what it does, it gives a free piece because these are the both battery that can't be taken with the king. So now he went for this move. Benko went for the move knight g6, controlling and adding more defenders of this square like this. So now he relocates this knight here, and now the very same rule of applying your knights on the best squares. He went knight d1, that of knight e3, of this knight e3 and knight f5 to control attack this right squared bishop. So now Benko rook c8, knight e3, rook c2, rook c7 and knight f5. The goal is completed, attacking this bishop. Now he played the very same move, rook f8, to straight open this f6 move. Now he's relocating his queen somewhat like here, or he can go this and here. Also he can bring this queen into the battery of these rooks. Also there are much more options. He played here f6 and there comes the move f4. You're really sacrificing a pawn, and now what it does, it creates an open file for your queen. So this is also a formula that you're opening up a file ready to threat your opponent king. After this move, Benko took the pawn with e captures f4 and he went for the queen h5 move, sacrificing your bishop. On the next move, threatening a checkmate. Here this checkmate is unstoppable, and this from this position Benko resigned and Nazarov won the game. Why? Because if you take the rook, we have this queen h7 check. Oh, sorry. First we have the move queen captures g6, threatening this checkmate on the next move. So now you have already a defender, but if you want to add some more defenders like this, but now we have a rook h8 checkmate. So now what if you say they go the move g4 or something. Now also we have the move rook h8 checkmate. So if you do the mistake of this allows the black to escape in exchange of giving some pieces like this. For this move bishop takes, now knight goes there. After this check, again king can't go here, he can block with this, and now we have this check, king here can't move there. So now what you can do is play this king here, and now we take the queen. Yes, we are clearly better, but also we have a mate into after rook h8 check, rook f8, rook captures f8, king d7 and queen e8 check. So but how you look, we do a mating pattern or a mating net. After this bishop captures g3 move with capturing this knight, threatening this checkmate on the next move. This was in this video to how to find the best moves easily. If you liked it, please subscribe to our channel and like this video.